booze, and booze. You are about to embark on a journey, one that often leads to more questions than answers. But fear not, your host, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy have the experience, the perseverance, and yes, even the gifts to pull back the veil and allow us to glimpse the other side. They will share not only their experiences, but will introduce you to world renowned researchers and experiencers to help you find answers in the murky waters of what we call the paranormal. Their bonds with each other reach far beyond friendship, resulting in a pull no punches approach to the many subjects they explore. Their goal? To open eyes, hearts, and even minds to what lies on the other side, and the answers residing there.
Good evening,
Hi,
everyone.
buddy.
How is everybody? We're
Ooh,
we're doing all right. How are you, Brandy?
good.
And Brandy?
I'm hoping I just keep my signal tonight. It's a little strange. That
Yeah,
wind's
as
blowing
you.
out there and it got cold quick.
Yeah, it did. It did. It got nasty here. It was raining this morning, but not as cold, and it just like the wind picked up and it got awful today.
Yeah, I think it dropped like
So
20 degrees or something from the start of this morning till tonight. I was like, oh, now I'm freezing. I got a
yeah,
blanket over my legs. I'm just like,
yeah,
woo, it's cold out
I hear
here.
you. I hear you. Got quite a few people out there in the chat. Midwest Night Watchers, Gary Spikes, Chiro Sounds, Night Marionette Productions, C. Campbell, Be Kind, AJ, hello. I'm trying to go through them. Lori, how are you? Sherry, C. Campbell, Glenn. Let's see. Sorry if I miss anyone. It keeps like refreshing. So we
Yeah, I
appreciate
got
you being here. So we have, go ahead.
Tombstone and Pat and
Yep,
woo.
bunch of good people. So anyway, we have a pretty good show here. We have Robby from. He's got his own podcast, What's Really Out There, and then he is also one of the co-hosts of to DA Ex Machina show. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring Robby up. There he is. How are you?
Good.
Hey,
How are y'all?
Robbie.
Hey,
Doing
Brad.
all
Hey,
right.
Krista.
Doing all right. We'll let everybody know too. I also invited another police officer to come on the show this evening. He's a Kansas City police officer, and he is working. So if he can chime in a little bit, he is going to. Couldn't guarantee that he'd be on. If not, we'll have him on another time. But he's went through a lot of. I guess what would be the good word, Robby, with other police officers?
Hazing, harassment,
Yes,
Scrutiny.
bullying. I mean,
right.
it
There's
depends on
a whole lot of
depends
words
on
you could use
yeah,
for the one he's going through.
depends on how they
Exactly.
mean it. I mean, I've I've had it from the department I worked at where it wasn't friendly, and I've had it at the department I work at now where it's friendly. I mean, all in good fun type stuff. So I mean, it just depends on, I guess,
Okay. Brandy and Robby talk a minute. He just messaged me for the link.
Oh, well, that's good.
So
Yeah.
you guys chit chat, and I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, he's had, just people, just say, well, you're crazy, you didn't see that and blah, blah, blah. And you're just making things up. And
Yep.
I just I can't believe it. I just,
So Brandy, ignore this. I'm sending this link to you so I can forward it to his through text. So anyway,
okay. She's sending me messages.
right? Just ignore it.
Oh,
It's
no.
okay.
I've had people at previous departments look at me and tell me they believe in ghosts, but they don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't understand how you can believe in
I don't understand that either at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like,
ghosts and aliens are plausible, but Bigfoot's not.
Right.
yeah, that's
That
not
blows my
even,
mind. That the kind of closed-minded thought process has to go on with that.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to get them sent here through my computer to his phone number. You guys have any ideas? Because it's not working to send it to Brandy and then forward it. I can't copy it.
I got mine on text message once from text.
I know, but I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Oh, on your computer.
I'm trying to, but I don't know how to text anybody from my computer.
No, I meant you're on your computer. Do you have your phone next to you?
Yeah,
Set it on the phone.
I'm trying, but I sent it to you to forward it to you and then like forward it to him, but it's not letting me. I got one more idea. So guys, keep
Leave it to
There's a
the
will, there's
blondes. We'll figure out something.
I will make it happen.
Yeah. But I mean, you hear all these stories. That's why I love these podcasts, is because that we can sit and we can talk about everything and there's no judgment. And that's the wonderful thing. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are, there's no judgment. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, you sit and I tell people, well, I talk to dead people, and some people think I'm crazy, and I'm like, it happens.
Well,
Walk in
and
my
here's the
shoes
thing,
for a minute.
most, regardless of whether or not with this community, and I'm speaking for not just cryptids or not, the entire thing, whether or not somebody, for the most part anyway, whether or not somebody might buy into what a particular theory that you have, it's not a judgmental thing. It's okay. Well, good. That's your, I don't believe that it happens that way, but who's to say that I'm right or you're right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that I like about it is, everybody's allowed to have their opinion and they're not judged just because of one thing or the other. For the most part, there are, people out there who my way or the highway type people. I've seen those. I've actually already talked to a couple of those since I've been involved in the community, but you're going to have stuff like that no matter where you go, no matter what, whether it's cryptids or carburetors. You're going to have know-it-alls out there who think that they know everything there is to know about everything.
Right. I agree. So I figured out a way to do it, and I just sent him the link. So
You are so smart.
when I want to be.
I'd still be trying to work on it 20 minutes later.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Robby, you just want to start from the beginning. I personally know your stories. And there's some out there I'm sure that do, but some out there I see that are more paranormal people, and they probably don't know your story. Can you just start by telling us?
Yeah, it's getting kind of a little bit easier to tell it. For a long time I didn't tell the story, and I kind of suppressed it. So, and I'm starting towards the kind of the middle of all this to kind of go back to the beginning. So when I started reading DA's books, I read the Odin's Call first, and there was a line in that book that I read it and I froze. It was one of the lines where they were, and I don't want to give it away if anybody hadn't read the book, but basically what the line was is they were describing one of the Bigfoot, and it was tree peeking, which is that out and back behind the tree. I read that line and it just, I have the whole entire story, or the feelings that I had when all that happened, the whole entire episode that happened to me just came right back, just immediately.
Wow.
And so the story about how I reached out to DA, and the rest is history as far as that part goes. But that line brought everything back, and that's telling the story to DA and Anthony the first time that I was on their show was the first time that I'd really told that story to anybody other than, me and my dad talking about it probably in 20 plus years or more. Because I'm 48 now, and I was probably 7 or 8 when I had my encounter. So you do the math. It was a long time ago.
Right.
81, 82, somewhere around in there. So it was summertime, and it's about at the most 150 yards from where I'm sitting right now. That kind of changes because when I first started talking to him, I was out in my shop, which was a little bit closer. So now I've moved into my room inside the house, so it's a little bit further. But anyway, it's just across the road from where I'm sitting right here in my great-grandparents' old house. Those of you who are around my age probably remember the sitting on the front porch on summer nights and talking with the old yellow light bulb that
Right.
all the bugs and everything. So my mom, her mother and dad, my grandparents, and my great grandparents, which was my grandmother's mother and father, they were all out there on the front porch talking. I was sitting inside watching TV, and Pa and Granny's house was an old farmhouse style setup where it had the two main rooms and everything else was kind of built off of that. And you had a straight cut through from the back bedroom all the way to the back porch. So I'm sitting in the den next to the wood stove watching TV, and right next to where I'm sitting is the kitchen. Kitchen 10, 12 feet long, however long the standard room was back then, and a little 4-foot mud room, or what we call the back porch. And like I said, back in those days, you didn't bring a bulldozer in and level out the property. You leveled the house with block to where it fit on whatever your property was. So, the front side of the house sat on the ground. Well, then the back side had to be raised up with block. And it was probably, I'd say the bottom of the house was probably 5 feet off the ground at that point. So they had one of them old, not cinder block, but old concrete set of block steps that went up to the bottom of the door. Old metal screen door, which is 6.5, 7 foot, however tall a storm screen door is, metal screen door. So the top of that door is probably 10.5, maybe 12 feet from the top of that door to the ground. So I'm sitting there watching TV. Whatever I was watching goes off, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go out and sit on the front porch. I stand up, turn the TV off, turn and look out, for whatever reason, look through the kitchen and look out the back door, and I see something staring in the door at me. And I'm trying to process in my head, what am I looking at? And while I'm thinking, what am I looking at? I'm kind of doing like this. Well, if I went this way, it was going that way. So it was going the complete opposite direction I was going. So obviously it was not my reflection that I was looking at, which plenty of people told me, oh, it's just your reflection. I've never seen a reflection move the opposite way. I mean, I know technically it's mirrored and it is, but it looks like it's going in the same direction with you. So it was not
Hey, Josh.
reflection.
Hey, how are you?
We're doing good. This is Robby.
What's up, Robby?
He's an officer in South Carolina, and this is Josh. He's a Kansas City police officer. Robby's telling his story, and when he's finished, Josh, we'll let you tell yours.
Sounds good.
So in my little 7, 8-year-old brain, I'm trying to figure out what is this that I'm looking at this, and then all of a sudden everything just clicked into place. And I don't remember if the word Bigfoot come through my head. I know the word monster came through my head. That and it was just like, and the hair on my arms started standing up, the hair on the back of my neck started standing up. Well, I took off running out to the front porch, and my stepdad was a deputy sheriff for the county that we live in. And back in those days, there was no cell phones. There wasn't no pick up the phone and call.
Right.
I go out telling my mom, I want Dad here, because I knew Dad had a gun. He was my stepdad. He was a cop. There wasn't nothing going to take care, or wasn't nothing going to get me if he was there. But back then, you had to call dispatch. Dispatch had to call them on the radio. Then he had to drive somewhere where there was a phone, pick up the phone and call. So, it's not no quick process like we get called now. Hey,
Mhm.
call dispatch for it, or let me transfer a phone call to your cell phone, which I hate.
Sure.
But it was a long process, and my mom was trying to tell me, we can't get. I said, well, get Uncle Brian, because my uncle was 6'5", about 350 to 400, somewhere around there. He played football, was a big guy. I said, okay, if I can't have Dad, I want Uncle Brian down here. I knew I needed one of them down here to protect me from whatever was out there.
Right.
So long story short, they finally get my uncle down there, and he goes back out there and he stands on the top step and stands there and says, see, look, you were seeing a reflection and everything. And I'm like, Uncle Brian, that thing was like 2 feet above the top of your head. Now he's 6'5" and he's standing on that top step, and his head was like that little middle bar. His head was probably that far above the middle bar. The top of this thing's head, the top of his head was above the top of the door. So I was seeing from like here down to probably just below the bottom of his stomach.
Wow.
Probably just below his belly button, I would guess. So, 10.5 feet maybe.
Mhm.
And I know there was no hair around. His eyes were sunk in. I don't know what color the hair was because it was dark outside. I couldn't see a color. It just looked dark.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no hair around the eyes. They're real sunk in. And this, I know Anthony's talked about his sighting and saying it looked Aboriginal, Native American, almost human.
Human, yeah.
This was an animal, pure and simple. There was no human features to it whatsoever. It looked like you took a gorilla's head off of it and put it on Andre the Giant's body and put hair all over it. I mean, it was huge, but it was an animal. There was no, no human features to the face. The nose was flared out like a gorilla's nose, and the eyes were sunk in. And there may have been hair around the bottom of the face, but like I said, it was dark, so it was hard to tell. I just know for a fact there was none around the eyes because I could see the reflection, or not the reflection. I could see the eye shine on his eyes, so you could kind of tell there was just skin around that.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, even my stepdad didn't believe me, and he kept. There's a word, and you're probably familiar with pareidolia, which is, you see something in a shadow and it turns out to be a stack of garbage.
Right.
There was an old magazine called Police Beat, and my dad used to get those all the time. And they actually had an entire magazine on that. And on the front cover, it looks like there's this big monster in a dark alley. But then they show the next when you open up the story, it's a bunch of garbage stacked up. But it looks like, he said, see, that's what you saw. It was something like it. You just saw. I'm like, no, and that's, if he is one of my biggest believers and supporters now. And I asked him one time, I said, what changed? He said, well, I believe there's just too much evidence to believe that they don't exist now. He said, and he said that in 40 years or however long it's been, 30, 40 years that I've told him this story, my story's never changed, not once.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, from a law enforcement standpoint, that's something, and you can back me up on this. If somebody's telling a lie, they're going to change the story.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to go, you're going to say something this time and over here, because you can't remember what you've lied. And he said, your story never changed, not one single time in 40 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things that kind of started making him at least look at what I was saying. Then he just started looking into the evidence and started realizing there's just way too much evidence to write this off as. Now, he's never had a sighting or anything, but I guess my persistence has paid off with my stepdad.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. At least they believe you now, though, because to me that would be hard. That like my family wouldn't believe me, or you know what I'm saying. Josh, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you hopping on with us.
Yeah, sorry, it's last minute.
Oh, it was last minute when I messaged you. So I appreciate you. I
We often get
Brittany,
these bright ideas. We get these bright
last
ideas at
minute.
the wrong times.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
okay. It's my birthday too, so
yeah. And happy birthday.
Happy
appreciate
birthday.
it.
Happy
Appreciate it.
birthday.
We Brandy and I, have heard your story, but there's, everybody else out there hasn't. And one of the things that, and I've actually told Robby, before about you, um, that you took a lie detector test, the whole nine
Yep.
yards. If you wouldn't mind telling everybody your story, and then we can get into the lie detector test and all that good stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm Josh. I'm from Lexington, Missouri. My sighting was in 2002 in Dover, Missouri. I'm an avid hunter. I hunted that area for many years. When I hunted the area, I never like visually seen anything, but I never visually seen anything when I was hunting. But I dated a girl that lived on the Missouri River Bluffs in Dover, Missouri, in the year 2002. I was leaving her house one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, which is typical for me. I'd leave her house pretty much every night that late. I never seen anything then until the one time back in the summertime of 2002. Her name was Cody Kerr. It was Kerr Orchard. They actually owned a huge apple orchard up on the bluffs back then. And the next door neighbor had a cattle farm. So I was leaving her house about 3 a.m. It was dead of summer during the apple season. It was super hot outside. I had my windows up, driving down the gravel road, coming around an S curve on the gravel road. And as soon as I started coming around the S curve, I seen like something down on the ground, like on fours, and it was facing like towards the cattle farm. Well, little did I know about the cattle farm. His name was Dunkel Farms. Jesse Dunkel had told me, as a kid I knew about. He's about my same age. He said that there were missing cattle, like baby calves were starting to go missing, like on his farm. Not just a couple. We're talking like over 10 little calves gone missing. They would like search the area. They wouldn't find any bones, nothing, no signs of like something actually attacking them and dragging them off. There's no signs, of anything like that. These things were just disappearing, just gone. So as I'm coming around the gravel road, the S curve, out in the middle of the road, there's something on fours. It's black because my headlights are starting to light it up on the ground, and it's facing towards the cattle farm. At that moment, I was like, man, that kind of looks like a black bear. But in Missouri, we don't really have black bears. Every great once in a while, somebody might see a black bear. And I hunted that area for many years. I've never seen a bear. But at the second, first thing that came in my head had to be a black bear. So I'm coming around the corner more, the S curve, and my headlights fully light this thing up on the ground. And at that moment, when my headlights fully lit up the hair on it, it just made this very weird, sparkling, like shimmering effect from my headlights hitting the hair. Now, I don't know if my headlights were reflecting off the hair or if the thing was wet, like, if it's wet and my headlights were hitting it, making that shimmering effect. But it just started to sparkle. It made this really cool, sparkling effect. And as I came around more, that's when like the whole thing turned its like head, shoulders, like to the right, looked dead into my headlights. And I'm going super slow right now. I would say at this second it's probably maybe 20 yards, maybe 20 yards from me, 15 yards at that moment. It looks dead into my headlights. It just turns its head, everything, shoulders, does that. And as soon as it did that is when my headlights hit it right in the eyes. And it had this two giant piercing green eyes. Like like so much brighter than a deer's eyes, when you hit the deer in the face with a flashlight out in the woods, if you're spotlighting, whatever you're doing. But so much bigger eyes and just very, very green piercing eyes. Now it only did that when my headlights actually hit it, in the face. It didn't do that like my headlights weren't like actually on it. So as soon as I hit it in the eyes with my headlights, it immediately did a 180 spin to the left. Like it spun to the left at 180, super fast, and then it ran off on fours, and it was gone for a moment. Now, again, I'm in a little car. I'm driving super slow on this gravel road, and I'm coming up closer to the area where I seen it. And this whole thing lasted, I'm going to say it lasted 15 seconds. You can just say 15 seconds. This is how long, I had a good visual, 10 to 15 seconds of seeing this thing. So when it ran off to the side of the road, it was gone for a minute. And I'm slowing way down. I'm like creeping because I'm still like, what the hell was that? Because this thing was big. It was on the ground. It was super low to the ground. And then it spun.
Did you at that time, did you believe in Bigfoot? Had you ever even thought about, were you a believer at that time?
I mean, my parents and my brothers would talk about it. I was probably like 50-50. I was very skeptical. For me to believe something, I pretty much have to see it. So I was very skeptical. I mean, but there are so many sightings and stuff like that. So many people coming out, about their stories, and there's got to be some truth to it. But me in general, like I have to see something to really believe it. And it wasn't at that exact moment. Even when it ran off to the road, when it ran off to the side of the road and I lost it for a minute, my mind was still thinking, that has to be a black bear. It can't be nothing else. We're in Missouri. Like it just has to be a random black bear sighting. So I'm slowing way down again, and I'm looking out my window. And as soon as I started looking out my window to where it ran off to, because it ran off in like kind of like a lower grassy ditch. So I'm looking out the left side of my window, and then boom, all of a sudden, man, this thing was already standing up on 2 feet. It was standing up on 2 feet. I could see from the head all the way down to like the lower kneecaps. And it was standing there like a statue. It was standing broadsided, had super massive long arms, tree trunk thighs. And you could see I could actually, because I had my headlights on, my brights, and I had the reflection of the moon. So when I'm looking at it, I mean, I can still see a lot of it. Now, the facial part that everybody talks about, like mine didn't have that. Mine had super long hair in the face. It had super long hair that came down about right here, right before the pectorals, because I could visually see pectorals. Like mine was 100% a male. I could see the pectorals. The frontal part of it had a lot of gray, whitish hair mixed in with black. And it had super long matted hair together. The hair was just so matted together on like the whole thing. But in the chest, it didn't have as much hair. And I could see the pecs. They're very visible. You could tell 1,000% it was a male. Because how this thing was built, the statue of it is like a bodybuilder physique. That's all I could say. It just was super massive. It was very, very strong looking. Approximately 8 foot, between 750 pounds. And again, like I've never seen anything like that in my life. I've hunted my whole life. Even back there on that property I hunted. And there was times like when the woods were like super, super creepy, nothing moving, nothing talking. Like the woods talks, when you're out in the woods, I mean, the woods talk, all the birds, animals and stuff like that. But there's multiple times out there that nothing was moving, nothing was talking. You'd hear like snaps and stuff like that. But I never visually seen anything when I was in the woods. It wasn't until that night about 3 o'clock in the morning is when I seen that thing. And all I can tell you, the thing, it breathes, it bleeds just like us. It's everything I'm looking visually, like this thing definitely breathes. It bleeds. It's not, it's not some supernatural thing. Like for me, like it was a living animal. It was a living animal, 1,000%, and it was massive. Like it was so massive, and it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, but the scariest thing too. Like I would definitely want to come across one of these in the woods. Like I don't know what I'd do. I really don't know what I'd do. I'd be in trouble.
Right. But. Right. So when you realized what it was, I mean, were you still doubting yourself, or were you like, oh shit, I just seen a Bigfoot?
So like at the exact moment I seen it, I mean, it took my mind, it took my brain just seconds to process, what I was looking at. It didn't take long because whenever I got into the full S curve, whenever I was coming out of the S curve, it was like a downward. It was like a downward, a downward like that. When I was going down, as soon as I passed it, and I started to go down. Just my brain kicked in. Like it was at that exact moment, I like downshifted my car, so I'm starting to freak out. I downshifted and I almost killed my car right there on the S curve. That's when my brain really started to process. Holy crap! I just seen a massive Bigfoot. Like this is the real thing. Like it was so big. I mean, it could have easily. I felt like it could have easily just like flipped my car over, or like attacked my car or something like that. And I'm out in the middle of nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning on the river bluffs, and there's only my girlfriend's house at the time and another house down the road. I mean, there ain't nobody out there.
Wow.
I got a question, Robby. When you saw the Bigfoot standing right there, and you're looking through the door, did you ever doubt yourself? Did you ever think for a second that when everybody said, "Oh, it was probably a bear," that it was a bear?
I don't think anybody ever said they thought it was a bear. I think most thing I got was a reflection or light or something. That it was just a figment of my imagination type thing. But no, I never once doubted what I saw.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so with you guys both being on police officers, like, what made you guys come out and tell your stories? Because both of your stories, from a while back, what made you guys decide to just, let others know?
Go ahead, Josh. I'll let you answer first.
Okay. Yeah. So like for me, it's just throughout the years, it's just seeing like and hearing all these stories and all these other people like coming out, years later and telling their story. I just got to the point I was like, you know what? I don't care if someone thinks I'm crazy. I could care less, Plus being a cop and stuff, you don't want people thinking you're crazy. But at the same time, so much time had went by. I'd listened to so many different stories and all these other different people, coming out and telling their story. I was just like, this is the time now. And then I used to tell my daughters, I'd tell my daughters the story and they're like, Dad, you're crazy. You're crazy, Dad. You didn't see nothing. But yeah, I just got to a point where I didn't care anymore. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care if they think I'm crazy. I seen what I saw, and I so much to the point where I paid my own money to take a polygraph test, to take the CVSA test, this computer voice stress analyzer test. Is like the most advanced polygraph test you could take. So I paid my own money, like $400 to take it.
Mm-hmm. And I seen it. You showed, and Brandy was there too. So we seen it, and and it said no deception.
We sure did.
Yeah.
So are people that you work with, Josh, are they more, should I say, did they believe it more, or did it just not make any I mean, change to it? I mean,
did they believe it more like maybe after you showed them the polygraph test?
It's kind of funny because I the whole station has heard my story. I've told everybody, but the more I told my story and the more people at my station actually heard it, I actually had 2 other cops come out and say, "Hey, I believe you," and they would tell me their story about something that happened, and I'm at the same station, so I had a sergeant and another officer tell me their story about. One was down by the Lake the Ozarks, and another one is down by the Niangua River, down in Springfield, Lebanon. Down in there about they were camping down there, and they had an encounter. So, people believe me. People believe me. They really believe me since I took that CVSA test because it's just so more advanced than a regular polygraph test.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the polygraph test or how they work or anything, but I think DA, who Robby co-hosts his show, he's on, and he too is used to be a police officer. So and he's down around the Springfield, Missouri area. So where
Yeah.
you said that last, um, your friends had their experience, but so when you showed the polygraph test, where people were like, oh shit, maybe he is telling the truth, or
Whenever I showed them that, they're just looking at me like I was crazy still. But they're like, some are. I had just people come up and just say, "Hey, I believe you 100%." I had this happen, I had that happen. They're like, "We know you're telling the truth." And then you're always going to have your ones that's always going to make fun of you. You know what I
right.
mean? Like jokingly and try to mess with you and just joke with you, but they still know. I mean, I know they know I'm telling the truth. Like, there's nothing for me to hide, nothing to gain anything. Like, I'm not gaining nothing. I'm not,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
reason for me to lie about this. Plus, to
Yeah.
spend my own money to take that test. Like, you can, again, like Robby said, this was 20 years later. I've told this story now several times, and it does not change one bit, and it will never change until the day I die, because the visual that I have in my mind, like, I will never forget it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. And it really legitimately brought fear to me. Like, I was telling my daughters before, as soon as I dropped them off after my birthday dinner, I was like, hey, they want me to come on and tell my story. And then my daughter's like, Dad, we still don't believe you. Like, one of my daughters do, but they're like, Dad, they didn't say they didn't believe me. They said, we know you've seen something, Dad, but it wasn't a Bigfoot. It had to be a shadow. It had to be maybe a bear or something. So I'm looking down at my daughter, and like, typically when I tell my story, like, I don't know why, but my eye will like just start watering, because it just has to be the fear of what I've seen still is embedded in my brain so much that it'll never leave. Like, I will never forget it. My story will never change, and that's it. Just like Robby said, like, your story won't change when you tell the truth. I don't care if it's
Right.
50 years later; it's never going to change.
Right. I
You
agree.
might remember minute details that you add, but from front to back, the basic story is not going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robby, how has your story been accepted, like with other law enforcement? And
Yeah, there's a few that believe me. The biggest part, and Josh can tell you, cops are funny. We're wired different. We're built different, and to admit something like that a lot of times makes it's like it's against the cop rule type thing, or you know. But I'm to the point. I've been doing this 26 and a half years. 48 years old. I don't care anymore. I really
Right.
don't. I hid it for so long because you know, somebody would say something, or you'd hear people talk, oh, that they're crazy. Can you believe so? So I would just keep my mouth shut, and I just got to the point now where I don't care.
Right. Gotcha. I understand kind of where you're coming from, because my brother's a police officer, and he knows I do this show. He knows I do the paranormal and all that. And he just, I mean, he just knows his sister's kind of freaky out there, does weird stuff. He doesn't, acknowledge it. He just kind of rolls his eyes at me, even including with the ghosts. So it is what it is. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep. Yep. Robby, you're a researcher. How long have you been researching?
Well, I mean, I've been fascinated with Bigfoot and Dogmen. Well, I won't say it was Dogmen; it was more werewolves, because I didn't really know about Dogmen until probably a couple of years ago. I would just always assume werewolves, but I've been obsessed with those, my whole life. I watched the old In Search Of, and anything that I could get, because back when we were growing up, you didn't have the internet where you could just get on YouTube and watch all these. You had to wait for them to come on TV, and so going to the library and getting any of those books, watching the $6 Million Man when he was fighting Andre
Right.
the Giant dressed up as
Right.
Sasquatch. I mean, anything that I could watch with stuff like that. So, but as far as like what I'm doing now, probably about 7-8 months that I've been really seriously into it.
Yeah, hitting it hard and heavy. Josh, do you have any plans to go out and do researching or anything like that yourself?
I mean, I'd love to. I'd love to if I could find the time, honestly. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
so busy right now with my daughters and just working and trying to get everything paid for, and life in general. It's so
Yeah.
tough. Man, I'd love it. Like, I'd really like to do it sometime when I have more time,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
pour everything I have into it. Because, I mean, it's going to be expensive, too. I mean, it's going to cost money to do stuff like that, too. Just
Right.
going.
Oh, Robbie can tell you about that,
I
I'm
was just
sure.
going to ask Robbie, what kind of equipment would you suggest? Oh, somebody just commented on the chat that Lisa Marie Presley has died. That's awful.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
Huh.
somebody just commented on the chat. That's awful.
I heard that earlier, too.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well, thanks for letting us know. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Robbie. If you could just kind of
Well,
equipment and stuff somebody like Josh or myself or somebody would need.
Well, obviously it's a little bit different than the kind of researching y'all are going to do. So you have to have not only do you have to have the stuff that you want to have for the research, you got to have your survival stuff too. Because, it's not like you're in town at a haunted museum. You're out in the middle of the woods, and whether or not you run up against cryptid, there's other things in the woods that can and will hurt you. So you need your IFAC, individual field. And I do this every time. Individual field. Anyway, so first aid kit.
Right.
So you need. A lot of people don't like guns, but you need to have something: stick, knife, whatever. You need to have something. You need to make sure that people know where you're going. Make sure that they know when you're supposed to be coming back.
DA said individual first aid kit.
Thanks, DA. I have every time I try to say that, I get IFAC, but I can't ever spit it out. So
Gotcha.
anyway, yeah, he just sent me a private message about it too, but it come through on the anyway. But then past that, binoculars. It's good to have like a box of those Ziploc bags. Like if you find hair samples, I mean, basically, Josh, anything that you would think about it to put together for an evidence kit that we would use in our normal work, it's pretty much going to work for that too.
Yeah.
Gloves, bags to put evidence in, camera, ruler for scale if you're taking pictures of things, along with all the survival stuff on top of that. So it's nothing really specialized, and it's not anything that's going to break the bank to just go out and, you probably got half the stuff I just named off anyway. If you think about it, I didn't really have to go buy a lot of stuff. I've been to, I don't know how many evidence classes, and it seems like every one of them gives you one of those little paper rulers. I've probably got 30 of them things scattered around between my patrol car, my box at work, and here in the house somewhere. I mean, people are always giving out stuff like that you can use stuff like that for, but you can get those on Amazon. So it's just just basic stuff like that. You don't have to have multi-million-dollar equipment to go out and thermal imaging and drones and things like that. That stuff's nice, but you don't have to have that.
Yeah. Well, real quick, Josh, I know you're familiar with the ranch, and I don't know if you heard, but when we did the last Fall into the Supernatural, remember I had told you about that night we were doing? Well, we were sitting outside there and around a fire, and we actually had something like thrown towards us, and which was pretty interesting. And then DA, who's out in the chat, when he was leaving, he's seen something what might be like, what did he describe it like? Robbie is even like maybe a dog man or something.
Yeah, that's kind of the way we kind of leaned with that one.
Yeah,
so,
on the gravel road. When you're going to the ranch and right before you go around that big curve?
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
like, and there's that White House there. It's in that cornfield area right in there where he's seen and everybody in his car seen it. He had,
Really?
3 other people.
Wow.
So that's interesting. So that might be a place for you to hit Marlin up and go out there.
Yeah. So another spot whenever I told my story, I started talking to some of the family members that own the cattle farm, right, where these cattle were missing.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to one family member, and he told me that the other house I was telling you about that's on that same gravel road that sits on the cow farm. It's like, probably, I don't know, 1,000 yards down the gravel road from where my girlfriend lives. So that house, this was after 2002. So I think this was in 2003. They told me, the people that lived there, which was family, I think family member of the Dunkel's farm, they had something during the winter time. They said come out of the woods and like peer through their window, and then the next morning they got up and went outside and looked and seen like big footprints coming because there was snow on the ground, coming out of the woods and going back down into the timber. Now
Wow.
that's just what they're telling me. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, 100% if they're telling the truth, but this is what they're telling me, like a family member. They have no reason to lie about it. Like when I'm talking to the guy, like I don't see him lying, but yeah, that's what he told me. And then there was another guy back in '94. This guy works for the Missouri Conservation now, uh, down towards like Springfield area, I think Mountain View. But he had a sighting in '94 when he was bird hunting with a couple of his friends in Concordia, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Concordia, which in between Concordia and like Waverly. Well,
Yeah.
that's really close to where I had my
You
sighting.
had your encounter. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
this was during the winter time too. Like I've talked to multiple people that had seen something during the winter time. So I don't know if these things like stick around all year or if like during the winter time they're like crossing and moving through to find, food. So that's interesting to me that
Yeah.
that we're seeing these things in the winter here in Missouri, because it's like almost why would we see them here in the wintertime? I
Robbie,
would I would think they would move with the food. That's just
that's
my
why I was
opinion.
just going to ask
Yeah.
Robbie, do you feel that they migrate, or do you feel like that they, stick around the same area? Because I mean, we do get some really cold winters here.
I think different ones do different things, and that's kind of what we were talking about last night on the show. We did it pretty much on the Yeti, but we kind of got into that a little bit. It's an adaptation thing. If they're adapted to that kind of climate, they're probably not going to move around the whole. But any kind of big predator is going to have a huge range. Mountain lion's got about anywhere from 200 to 250-mile range for their. So I mean,
Sure.
just moving in that is what we would call probably a migrational pattern anyway. But then you got things like if the food source leaves the area, then they're gonna follow the food source, and that's actually a theory I have about like the Beast of Bray Road. You'll go through time frames when there won't be a lot of sightings,
Mm-hmm.
and then there'll be a lot of sightings. I think they're following
Sure.
like deer, elk, moose, whatever it is they're preying on in that area. They're following that, so that you get the times when you get the sightings or when those are back in the area.
Right. Right. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know. Do you like, here in Missouri, and I know on other shows talked about, like that they possibly live in caves, and then where I know where Josh had his sighting, was right along, the Missouri River and on the bluff. So, I mean, there's got to be caves out there,
There's there's old coal mines too out there.
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah,
Old
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give them some place to, shelter for a while, and
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh, what's your feelings on like Dogman and other type cryptids? Do you believe in them?
I mean, for me, I guess for me, like with Dogman, I'm still 50-50. Now, I'm probably more than 50-50 now because I've actually visually seen a Bigfoot. So I can
Mhm.
say, well, if Bigfoot's real, why couldn't a dog man be real? Honestly, I'm just being logical at this point because I actually seen a Bigfoot. You know, 100% I know what I seen. So if I can say Bigfoot exists, I can definitely say I'm more than 50-50 saying that there probably is a dog man because of all these different people who are seeing stuff. Like,
Right.
of course, some people are probably making stuff up. That's just
Sure.
that's with anything. But you can't discredit thousands and thousands of different people saying they seen this. It's impossible. You can't
Right.
discredit that. Somebody is seeing something, and there's a lot of truth in that. Everything might not be true, but bits and pieces are, and there has to be something that people are seeing. Is it a
Yeah.
different type of Bigfoot? I don't know.
Right.
I know I seen a Bigfoot. So can Dogman exist? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I personally believe in Dogman. I've never seen one, but I believe they're out there. I mean, I believe in the Jersey Devil. I believe in the lizard
Yeah.
creature, all of that stuff myself. What about you, Robbie? I know you believe in Dogman.
Oh
but
yeah.
What about like the lizard people and things like that?
Well, Lizard Man's from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that made him famous.
Yeah.
Bishop County. We actually did one of my shows. We actually did on that, and then we did a show on him on DAX Machina too, and it's probably one of our more popular shows.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that's my buddy Lance that started what's really out there with me. He goes down around that area alligator hunting. Every year they caught a 10-foot alligator that was in 2 feet of water. That's a 500-pound animal that they never even saw until it came up. So if you got something that size that can hide in that little amount of water and not be seen.
Yeah. There's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm 110% believer in all those cryptids. We're at the 52-minute mark, guys, and we've got to take a 5-minute break. So if everybody would just hang out with us, Robbie, Josh, it does a countdown, so you'll be able to hear to come back. And now's a good time to go make yourself a drink. So if you guys give us 5 minutes, we will be right back.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, everybody, we're back.
Ooh, I think I needed that break. My brain and my mouth are not in sync tonight. They're just not working together. It's
Are
been
you
a long
hungry?
week. Woo.
Real quick, guys, I want to remind everybody on Monday nights to watch Texas Front Porch at 6:30 Central. And yours truly, Brandy, she co-hosts with Tex now on Monday nights. Tuesday nights is Van Beer and Variety at 7 p.m. After that, at 8 p.m. is Beyond BMR. On Wednesday nights is Theory Papers at 8 p.m. And then Jason McLean Questions Everything at 9 p.m. Thursdays is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at noon. And then you have the show Blondes and the Booze at 8 p.m. And on Friday nights is Blondes and the Booze and the Woo at 8 p.m. So anyway, before I forget, I wanted to make sure everybody tunes in and likes all those channels. I've got my dog here trying to get in the show. So anyway.
He's awfully big. I'm surprised he's not in
Oh,
there.
God. Yeah. I don't know if you can see him. Can you see him?
Nope. Just see the nose.
Oh, man. He's in his way right in here. He's wanting some pettings right now.
He's bigger than Krista.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a 200-pound English Mastiff, and he's wanting some loving right now. Anyway, we'll get back onto the Bigfoot cryptid topic. I do have a question for you, Robby. So when we do paranormal stuff and like pictures, we always take pictures in groups of 3. That way you have proof, if something's moved or something's disappeared, whatever. How would you suggest people take pictures of like cryptids? Would it be the same idea, take multiples of the same area, or
Yeah, I mean, I would always say that would be, because even in law enforcement, we don't ever take one picture. We take multiple pictures of, from different angles. Like if I'm photographing somebody who was assaulted, I'm not just going to take a picture of whatever the injury is. I'm going to take an establishing shot of the person, then a close up of their face, then a picture of the wound. So that way, in court you can defend, yes, this is the person that you took a picture of. Same thing with that. I mean, establishing shots, multiple shots from multiple angles if you can. It's just it's common sense and
yeah,
it's not a magic formula. I mean, you just go out there and do what you do.
right. Right.
I think people rely a lot on their cell phones, and as much as we love them and they are handy, the camera shutter speed is virtually slow compared to a regular camera. So I do recommend carrying a regular camera with you at times, so you can take pictures. Because I'm telling you, sometimes I miss a lot of things because you're just waiting for that camera to just go click on your phone, and it just takes forever, and you miss a lot of things, and then your pictures become blurry, and you know that's just my opinion though. I would carry a regular camera.
Also, my thing is too, with the paranormal, we don't take pictures with the flash on. What do you guys? I mean, would it matter being outside, like taking pictures of cryptids with having your camera flash on or off, or
Well, I mean,
we don't when we do.
if you're outside and it's daylight, I mean, your flash is
Paranormal.
not that's not gonna. And I wouldn't advocate being out with a flash hunting cryptids at night, because you're really going to give away your position. Oh, there he is. But
Right.
yeah, I think that comes down to a camera setting. And I'm not a photographer, so
Yeah.
I can't answer that kind of question. I probably would not have the flash on. But
Yeah, it does come back to the cell phone though at nighttime. A lot of phones are now coming with night vision, which all you need is moonlight, and you can get a great picture. But again, the shutter speed's slow, but if you have night vision on your phone, use it because it works. I mean, I've caught some great pictures with that at nighttime.
Although I
But
have to admit, though, like if I'm out in the woods and I come across the dog man, taking a picture of it is going to be the last freaking thing that I'm going to want to do.
I'll
I'm
probably
even
take the
thinking
picture
about
and won't even know they're there, and then later go, oh, hey.
Yeah.
I think
Hello.
I think in 2002, I don't even think my brain did not even process take a picture. Like once I processed what I seen, the fear set into me, and the only thing I wanted to do, honestly, was get out of there.
Yeah.
And I might even had a flip phone back then. I can't even remember, but yeah.
Good old
Yeah.
flip
I
phone.
was just wondering, did they have cell phones back then? Because I don't know that I had one back then.
I think flip phone, but for me, just in general, like I never even thought about, oh my God, I need to take a picture. I mean, my brain processed fear. Like I could be in trouble. So the first thing I wanted to do was flee. I wanted to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I think that would be my first instinct is like, let's get out of here. I'm ready to go. I don't want to be here.
Yeah. Hey, Robbie, I got a question for you real fast.
all right.
Hey, so like, everybody's like, well, why don't you see these things? Like, do they move in the daylight? Do they move at night? Like, in like my opinion, clearly we all probably think they move at night, right? But my question for you is, like, with all these like old railroad tracks, all these like easily access places where they could travel long distances at night, do you think they use train tracks to move at night, to travel, move to gain a lot of ground, to travel long distance at night? Will they use the train tracks?
We've kind of kicked that theory around because a lot of dogman sightings are around train tracks and areas like that. So I don't see why a Sasquatch couldn't do that too. I mean, I think they're active during the day too, just not as active. I mean, it's just like a wolf. I mean, wolves are more active at night, but you still see them during the day, just not as much. So I think, I think they are primarily nocturnal, and they do a lot of their movements, and that's a very plausible thing that they could be doing, because it's a long, straight, highway basically that they can use and travel. So that's a very good theory.
Yeah. Well, and also, how like some animals like could do a certain amount of range, do you think Bigfoot like stay in a range?
I think they probably, well, and there again, it's just my opinion. I think they probably do have a range, and I think it's probably a lot larger than, because you got to look at family size or troop size, whatever you want to call it, troop, pack, family,
Yeah.
group, whatever. So, if an animal the size of a cougar's got 260-mile range,
Right.
you're probably looking at something that's going to have 1,500 miles worth of range for a large size family. Because if you got, let's say, 6 or 7 members in the group, that's a lot of food and a lot of area.
Sure.
That 260 miles would not even come close to
Right.
to accommodations for that
Right.
those size of animals. So I'd say at least 1,500 miles. So you look at 1,500 miles. How many times do you think you're going to see them in one area if they've got a 1,500 mile range?
Right, exactly. DA says, I think they use game trails, old train tracks, and the right of ways cut for power lines and gas lines.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Robbie, one other question. So like whenever I seen mine out in the middle on gravel road, and the second my headlights hit it directly in the eyes, it made the greenest, sharpest, piercing, green eye reflection that I've ever seen. It was so bright. Do you think, everybody's like, why don't you get them on game cameras? Well, they probably see infrared. Do you think they see light from the game camera?
DA and I've talked about that. We both firmly believe they can see that infrared spectrum.
Yeah.
Because simple fact that you always hear about things. Something will set the camera off, but it's just far enough outside of the camera's range where it doesn't catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they can see that, and there's other animals that we know can see in that spectrum too. So it's, and we got to talking about some people talking about and there again, this is just my opinions. I'm not I'm not down anybody else's theories, but people talking about cloaking and things like that. This is an animal that can backtrack. I mean, if a grizzly bear can backtrack and turn around and end up behind you, why can we not think that something as smart as this would be able to do that?
Yeah.
I'm a trained tracker. I've been through classes. I can backtrack and I can see where something is backtracked. So if something that is born in the woods is basically got the best ghillie suit you could ever think about having, it's got clear hair follicles that's going to absorb light and make it look whatever color foliage or ground cover that it's in. Why is it so hard to believe that something like this is just not good at camouflaging itself? It's adaptive camouflage. And there's so much adaptive camouflage in the real world already. Why is it so hard to believe that?
I believe the night I seen mine and with the reflection, because just going back and thinking about, okay, the headlights, how did the headlights interact with what I seen? Like, was it wet or was it just a reflection? I really believe, because when I got closer to it and I looked out, just thinking back now, when I seen it standing up, it didn't look wet. It did not look wet. So now thinking back, like, I truly believe that when my headlights hit it, it didn't reflect because it was wet. I really believe the hair on this thing reflected the light. And if it did, that would only tell me that this thing can naturally camouflage itself in the woods anywhere to its natural surroundings. Anywhere. It can naturally just hide and blend in. So that to me, that even makes it more dangerous, like being a predator.
I've said it several times here lately, but like I said, they're wearing their own ghillie suit. They can just blend in wherever.
Well, because the military, like when my headlights hit it, it made this really crazy, sparkling, shimmering effect. Like, I can't even explain it, but I mean, it just was nothing but sparkling, like lots of sparkles. Like, it was just reflecting all the light that was in it.
We all know what fiber optic cables do, right? They're clear and they reflect light. Their hair follicles are clear. The shaft around their hair follicle is clear. What's that going to do if light's shining on it? It's going to make it reflect whatever color. If they're standing in front of a green tree, it's going to reflect green. If they're in front of a brown bush, and that happened to Johnny and I. We were up at our place where we were investigating. We were standing, 2.5, maybe 3 feet apart, but we were both looking at angles going in this direction. It's like I was on this side, Johnny was on the other side. I saw one color and he saw a different color, but we were looking at the same thing.
Wow.
And that,
Wow.
the military's, most of their newer ghillie suits are coming with fiber optic cable on it for that simple fact. So, how many other animals do we know in the world that have adaptive camouflage? A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this any different? I mean,
Right. No, I got you.
Being a police officer, I'm evidence based. I go where the evidence takes me, and it's always the Occam's razor for me. What's the what makes the most sense? And what makes the most sense is it's an animal that's born in the woods with the best ghillie suit that you can find. The hair follicles, just like a polar bear's, allow it to reflect light, and it's smart enough to know how to backtrack, jump on a rock, jump up in a tree, move 30 or 40 yards away from the stupid hairless monkey that's tracking it with a gun, with a boomstick. It's not, and there again, this is my opinion. I'm not trying to say that my opinion is it's not the way, it's a way.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. What are your thoughts about, like, you hear of people with like the infrasound and things like that. What are your thoughts what that could be? Because I mean, there's credible people out there who've talked about that, and then they're sick, after.
There is infrasound. I mean, that's proven. I mean, the military's looked into that kind of technology for years. Tigers even produce that. But I don't, I don't subscribe to the fact that some people handle things differently. Okay. So one person standing out there with this thing growling at them, it may cause them to lock up and freeze up.
Right.
But somebody else may not. I mean, Josh felt like getting out of there, but he didn't feel any ill effects from it. He just wanted to get out of there.
Right.
I didn't feel any ill effects. I just wanted to get out on the front porch with my family. But but I'm not saying that some people, it doesn't cause that fear reaction. And it's it's like we've talked about, that fear of the thing in the dark hunting us that looks like us. That's a paralyzing fear, and fear in itself can be paralyzing. I mean, put yourself in the ocean and you're swimming, and all of a sudden you see a shark fin break the top of the water. That fight or flight's going to kick in. I think it's that, and there again, like I said, my opinion, but I don't think that it's got some kind of magical, I think that sound would affect people in different ways, especially if you're out there in the woods and you're not out there specifically looking for something like that, and you're just out bebopping along, having your own thing, and you hear something like that. Yeah, it's gonna produce a fear response out of most people, and I think that's what it is. It's just, it's no different than a lion out hunting a gazelle, and when that lion lets out that low growl and that gazelle hears it, what's the first reaction? But the ones who don't, that freeze, those are the ones that get eaten.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just trying to go back here through the comments. I mean,
so
a lot of
Robby,
these
after
comments
you
that
had your experience on the front porch there, did you hear any other sounds, any other night than that one? Were you looking for it, or?
No, I didn't. At that point, I didn't want to see it again. So I was not. Now, DA and I have talked about this several times. There was, my great grandfather had cows, and every day before it got dark, he would send Ben, his dog, he would send him out to get cows out of the back pasture. And that whole area was nothing but woods and swamp and a creek back then. And now there's all houses and trailers and things like that out there. But they did tell me one time they went down the swamp because they thought there was a bear down there. It was after that, my sighting. And my dad and uncle come back and told me they found a tree that a bear had clawed up. But yet they didn't let me go down there and look with them. and DA's one that actually kind of brought that to my attention. He's like, they probably believed a little bit more than what they let on.
Right.
Especially my great grandfather, because he was a farmer. He lived on that land his entire life, and he was of that old wood boogers type thing. Don't you? Because I heard him say, "Don't you go out in them woods too far. The boogers will get you."
Yeah.
Right.
I just thought as a kid that was just something to scare me, to keep me. But now, sitting in the position that I'm in now, knowing what I know, that takes on a whole different meaning now.
Yeah. Another quick question for both of you. They're the master of disguise, these creatures. And I even believe a dog man is too, myself. That's my own personal opinion. But why do you both believe that you guys, I guess maybe were chosen, that it let you guys see them?
I don't feel like I was chosen. I feel like it was just curious and looked in the window and I just happened to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that goes back. That's I feel like it's just an animal. I don't feel like it's anything.
Mm-hmm.
And like Josh, you said you were a hunter.
Yeah.
How many deer have you killed in your hunting career?
Oh my God, so many deer.
Okay, let me ask you this question: have you ever shot or saw a deer? Rather, have you ever saw a deer before it moved?
Have I saw a deer before it moved? I mean, typically, I've seen them before they move before.
We usually don't see them till they move, right?
But usually they just sneak up on you and then boom, they're like right out in front of you. Yeah.
And you see an ear move, or you see an antler. You don't typically see a deer standing stock still, frozen. You don't usually. I don't either. Anyway, every deer that I've seen in the woods, I've seen because they moved. I caught an ear twitch. I caught it moved its head. Flipping the flag up or something like that. If a deer can be that, or squirrels, I've been squirrel hunting all my life too, and never hear them until you get up on the tree, and all of a sudden you hear that bark, and you look up and you see that little tail.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
you're looking right there at that tree, and you don't see it till that tail starts flipping.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the same kind of thing. If animals like that can do that, and we know there's deer, we know there's squirrel, why is it? Why can this not do the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And something that is that intelligent, it's going to know to stand still.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
What do you,
and
Josh?
for me, and
Josh,
for me,
go ahead.
yeah, for me, like I don't feel like it chose me at all. I feel like this is pure luck. Pure luck. And I ask myself every day, why in the world did it allow a car driving down a gravel road when this thing is down on fours, scouting out the cattle farm? Why would it stay there? Because I know it had to hear me start my car up, because from where I seen it to the house, we're talking like, I don't know, 500-700 yards. Probably seven. I'm gonna say like more like 700, 500 to 700 yards from the house, going down, leaving the house, going down the gravel road. Why wouldn't it just leave? Why would it stay in the middle of the road? I have no idea. To this day, I don't know that answer, other than luck. I just got lucky.
Yeah.
You would think it would have had to hear me coming down the road. My headlights. We're talking about 3:00 in the morning, out in the middle of nowhere. There's no sound going on.
Right.
It had to have heard the car coming down the road. There's no other way. There's no other way it wouldn't have. It would have heard the gravel moving, the car start, all that stuff. I don't know. I was just lucky. I was at the right place at the right time, and that's all I can say. I wasn't chosen.
Exactly. I mean,
Pure luck.
I feel like that thing passed by, because I wasn't at my great grandparents' house watching TV like that every single night.
Mm-hmm.
That just happened to be a night that we decided, that Mom said, "Okay, let's go down there," because my stepdad was at work. We just let's go down and see Pa and Granny, and my grandparents happened to come over. Just happened to be there in that particular time, watching TV. The light was on. I think it walked by, saw the light, and was just. I mean, how many stories have we heard about them looking in on kids?
Right.
It was looking in to see what was going on, and it just happened to look in at the time I stood up to turn the TV off, and just happened to look that way. To me, that's not chosen. That's just sheer luck of the draw that it happened.
Mhm.
Everything fell into place
Yeah.
that needed to fall into place for me to look that way and see that.
Yeah.
And that's what happened at the neighbors, a year later when they said, hey, something walked up to the house and looked in. At that second, they just seen a big object. They didn't know what it was. But the next morning, they walked out and seen giant footprints. So I think it's pure luck.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Robbie, since you've been researching them, have you had any other encounters or anything weird that could
Yeah,
possibly
yeah.
have been?
Norman, Johnny, and I've had several. The first time that Johnny and I went up to that place where we've been investigating, that was the day that we both were like this and saw something up at the top of the hill. Now, and what we saw, I don't know, because I couldn't see clear enough because where it was at, where the sun was at behind us. What we saw was doing this behind a rock. And it was standing up over the top of the rock. And when I say a rock, this rock was big enough to park a Honda Civic behind.
Wow.
So whatever it was standing over top of the rock. Wasn't a deer, but I can't say 100% sure that that's what it was. But I saw a lighter color. Johnny saw a darker color because of the way the light was shining on it, versus our different angles. But another time that and Johnny wasn't there this time, it was me and Norm and Terry went up there with us that time. I've always felt like we got paced every time we come out. Feel like it's pacing us out of its territory. Well, we kind of felt like this might have been a younger one that was pacing us this time. And we're out in the little parking area because this is this is one of the trailheads for Jones Gap State Park. So we get back out in the little parking area, and we were just sitting there talking because nothing has ever happened once we crossed that little red gate. And all of a sudden, off to our right, which was good ways past wherever or where usually everything stops, we hear something big start falling down the hill. It's like it lost its balance and slipped down the hill. So we all stop and we start looking, and then all of a sudden something starts raising a commotion over here on this side. When we turn and look this way, you hear whatever that was on this side hauled ass back up the hill and then back across that way. So
wow,
whatever happened, something fell that was watching us over here, and then over here was like, oh, got to cause a distraction. We turn over here, and then this one takes off.
Right, gotcha.
So,
wow.
Didn't see anything. That's just a lot of that speculation on our side or our part, but
like Susie says, teamwork. They had good teamwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What one thing you see, whenever you watch like Bigfoot shows, the TV, the main ones, they're doing like tree knocks and howls and is that something like that you do, or would you recommend against it, for it? What's your opinion?
My opinion is against it. Do you know what you're saying when you're knocking on a tree?
No.
Exactly. You might be saying dinner. I mean, you don't know.
Right.
You might be issuing a territorial challenge.
Yeah.
And giving him the big FU. I mean, I do not recommend it because, would you go into a different country and just start throwing out words that you've heard on TV? No, you wouldn't. I mean, because you don't know what you're saying. That'd be stupid because you could offend somebody and get yourself in a lot of trouble. It's no different. I mean,
yeah.
Why are you going to go into something that's 10 feet tall and 1,200 pounds plus and say something that you might end up pissing it off? I mean, I don't want to do that. So
yeah,
I don't believe in doing the call blasting, the tree knocks, any of that, whoops, none of that stuff, because you don't know what you're saying. There again, that's me. I'm not going to do that. If you want to go do that,
it 100% makes sense to me. I got to tell you guys though, I don't know, this has been several years ago, and Brandy knows Kathy, but she and I one time, we had a friend who gave us a bunch of homemade wine, and we sat and drank it one night around a campfire. We're like, let's do some Bigfoot calls, because we'd watched too many of those Finding Bigfoot TV shows. And so we were sitting out there, we were howling, two drunk girls, and we actually had an owl reply back to us. That was it. Stupid. The more stories I've heard, though, but I've heard others say that too, that they went and do that.
Well, and you know, Da just put it in the comments. That's 100% true because the same thing.
Yeah,
It's no different than deer hunting. I mean, you know, you don't go and the deer calls that we use, we know what those mean because
sure.
we've studied deer, but we don't go out there and make anything other than the grunts and rattling like two deers are fighting for over a female with that
Yeah.
smell. I mean, you don't go out there and try to make any other kind of deer sounds. You don't go out there and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time when you're hunting, you're sitting there being quiet, waiting. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, there's no way I'm going out into the woods, especially a national forest park
Right.
that's millions of acres, because you hear stories all the time about people just missing in the woods, right? Just gone missing, national forest. There's no way I'm going to try to call a predator. It's not going
Sure.
to happen. You're only asking for trouble if you're going to try to call a predator that big, you know.
Yeah.
This thing could easily snatch you up, pick you up, and run off with you. No
Mhm.
way.
Yeah. What do you guys think, being police officers, about all the, like, these missing 411? You know, what percentage would you say, in your opinion, would be like from something odd other than natural causes, or
Those are probably
murder?
the ones who tried to take the shot on either a Bigfoot or a dog man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure some of them are just people who wandered off and, you know, and you fell and broke a leg. But I think a lot of them are the ones that tried to take that shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to say the big national forests, the ones that have the millions of acres and stuff like that, where you can see forever. I think those are your most dangerous places because, I mean, they could easily grab you. That's their natural habitat. And they can just run off with you. Like
Yeah.
if you're in Missouri and stuff like that, yeah, we got some big forests and stuff, down south, kind of towards St. Louis, Springfield, down that way. But those big national forests, up north, but out Oregon and all that, California are out there, like
Mm-hmm.
they could easily just disappear. I mean, I think it's more dangerous being, out there in those big national forests.
Yeah.
There's,
Where you're not allowed to carry a weapon either.
yeah.
Right. And here's the thing. Today, this afternoon, I do brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob on Thursday afternoons, and today we had William Nighthawk on, and he made a good statement. He said a lot of these, excuse me, like national forests, like you were saying, Josh, they're all owned by the government. So what does that tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Mark Twain National Forest is 2.5 million acres.
Yeah.
And we talked about that before. If you look at that on the map, look how much green goes across, up across the band of the United States. How many things could hide in 2.5 million acres?
Sure. That's a lot.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot. I bet a lot of those woods that, have never seen a human.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just crazy stuff,
Or the ones that it has seen, we're never going to see them again.
Right. Exactly.
And we've actually, I think you was even on the show that we did that with that map, Krista. If you pull up all the missing 411 locations with all the cave locations,
yeah,
they are very, very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff if you really think about it, And
yep, Anthony just brought that up, the missing person chart and the cave chart.
Yeah, very true. And
Ozark,
DA said the Ozark National Forest is almost 3 million. So Josh, I don't know if you're familiar with Ozark National Forest in southern.
Yeah, I think down like by Arkansas border.
Yeah, southern Missouri, more so over that way. Brandy, is that your area?
No, Mark Twain.
Mark Twain is your area. Okay.
Yeah, and I went up messing around in that area, and you could easily see how somebody can just go missing and nobody'd ever know where you went.
Yeah.
Especially out there in their environment. I mean, I think that's the most dangerous because you're in their environment. They own these woods, especially woods like that. They know those woods up and down. They know places. People are never going to find you. If they wanted to grab you, take you off, no one's ever going to find you. Ever.
Right.
Yeah. They know where to hide for sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen that, Robbie,
yeah.
but
I mean, there's no way for us to answer a question like that. I mean,
yeah,
you know, I'm sure there are plenty of people who carry inside the national parks. If I was
mhm.
going to go in the national park, I would probably be trying to smuggle a weapon in, because
I'm
that's
definitely not going unarmed. I'll tell you.
yeah. But I'm sure there are probably just as many people that do go in there unarmed, though, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that don't believe in carrying firearms.
Mhm.
I'm
And
not
not
one of
only
those people.
for like cryptids, but even just to me, like there are bears, there are cougars, things like that out there. I would want to be protected just from,
The greater North American meth head.
exactly, exactly, for
I can't
sure.
take credit for that. That
Absolutely.
was DA's.
Yeah, yeah. DA said, Robbie, with your commission card,
Oh,
you can
I know.
carry.
I was just speaking if I was just a normal person.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know I can with my cert, but I'm just speaking as if I was just a normal person, then I
right.
wouldn't. I would still be trying to smuggle one in.
Heck yeah, I would too. I would too. I just, like I said, I just thought, with these national parks and what Nighthawk, he made that comment today that it's true. They're all government owned.
Well, yeah,
So
Teddy Roosevelt signed that in, and all that stuff with the national, making the national parks protected and all that stuff, and you can't,
mhm.
no hunting, nothing in that. What is the big thing that most presidents want to do? They want to go in and erase everything that the one before them did. That's
Mhm.
one thing that has never, ever, ever been challenged by any sitting president. I wonder why.
Hmm. That's a good point. I never thought of that, but it makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
really
Yeah, I
need to
mean,
look into that.
yeah, and
Just
that transcends
saying.
whatever party you're in. I mean, that's never been even remotely. I mean, have you ever even heard that as a campaign thing? Well, I'm going to open up the national. You've never heard that.
Hmm. No, you don't. You absolutely don't. You absolutely don't. Well, guys, we're going on about an hour and a half, and we're going to call it a night. Robbie and Josh, don't hang up when we're over. Got something to tell you guys. Also, want to I tell everybody I appreciate y'all tuning in,
We
and
appreciate you, really, we do.
yeah, for sure.
Jason, I've been trying to get you to do that with me forever. That's my best friend, Jason Sutherland, down there. I'm surprised he's actually watching.
Well, it sounds like you need to go find one then, Robbie. You need to go hang with
Well,
Jason.
if I can get that goofball to come out in the woods with me, no, he wouldn't be
Yeah,
able.
y'all
He
need to go
wouldn't be able
get
to
that
keep quiet.
evidence that nobody seems to get.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's yep. Well, keep us posted and let us know if you do see anything. Real quick, Robbie, where can people find you?
You can find me on my show is What's Really Out There. We're on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook. Also, you can find me on DAX Machina on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. Anthony and I are going to be in Ocala, Florida, I believe is where it's at for the Bigfoot convention in April.
Cool.
And I think that's about it right now.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Very
Now,
cool.
your podcast, your What's Really Out There, are those pre-recorded or do you have a set night?
Yeah, we we have a set night that we pre-record, but we don't have a night that we're on. We usually do our recordings on Tuesday nights. And we're good till January 20th right now, but we just recorded 2 more episodes that probably when I'm done here before I go to bed tonight, if they're finished from our editor, I'm gonna go ahead and set them up. Usually what I've been trying to do is get an episode on Friday mornings and an episode on Monday mornings to come out.
Okay.
And in your shows, you kind of talk about like everything weird, you
Yeah, a
know.
little bit of
I've
everything. I
listened to
mean,
your shows. Your shows are good. They're worth watching. And
it's
they're good
they're
shows
like
where
a
they're not super long, where you can like drive to the store and hear a
yeah.
whole
They're
episode.
in the way I've described them is it's kind of a more condensed version of what we do on DAX Machina. We really get into because we're a
Mhm.
lot longer show there, so we really get in depth on a lot of stuff. But our show we kind of just hit the high points of everything. Sometimes we'll go a little bit longer. Like probably one of the shows we do next week is probably going to be a little bit longer show, just because I know how me and Johnny are going to be, because it's going to be about movie monsters, and I know how me and Johnny are. We're going to ramble on. I told Norm, I said, I hope you ain't planning on that being a 15 or 20-minute show. That's probably going to be about an hour show.
Right, right,
So
exactly. That's awesome. No, your shows are great though. I've listened to, I think, just about every episode. I listened to the ones you had come out, the Men in Black and all that good stuff. So they're good shows. So everybody tune in to Robby's, and I will share his link one more time. And we appreciate everybody tuning in. And Robby and Josh, don't hang up. See you guys tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow.
yeah.
Mhm.